What up, lovely people? My name's Emily. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be going over part 3 of my princess gown video series, and that is the skirts. So I really wanted to make a nice floor-length skirt to complete that very regal look for the gown, but I also figured that I'd be investing a lot of time in this and I want it to be something that I could actually wear. So I figured I could probably make a shorter skirt as well, which is more work, but let's be real, I'm not gonna wear floor-length gown to the grocery store. So I ended up making 3 different skirts and they're all detachable, I guess you could say, which is excellent because that also means you can layer them. And the great thing about having 3 skirts means that I can layer them however I want or just wear one or the other, which gives me a lot of options in how I wear it, which is excellent because a girl loves options. So with that, let's just get into it. So as with the bodice as well as the sleeves, I just started out by sketching what I wanted it to look like. The skirts are pretty simple, it's just the 3 skirts, and I was looking for a tiered look so that I'd get those 3 different lengths. The fabric I had to work with were my old semi-translucent IKEA curtains, as well as some bed sheets and just some white fabric I had lying around. And I was going to use the curtains that were translucent as like the outer skirts and the more opaque white fabrics that were just like standard cottons for like underskirts. To begin with, I started off by making some of the underskirts, and that just consisted of getting a square fabric, creating hems both at the bottom and at the top, creating the one at the top so that it's wide enough that I can run an elastic through it, and then sewing closed the 2 sides of the skirt. I just started off by doing zigzag stitches along the perimeter of the rectangles so that the fabric wouldn't fray, and then I super duper willy-nilly just made some hems at like random widths more or less, just doing it by hand as I went. And then once I had those created, I just used a safety pin to run the elastic through. Ideally, you would have one continuous elastic, but in my case, I had to sew pieces of elastic together because your girl was lacking material and I couldn't just go out to a sewing store to get some. So I ended up lacking enough thick elastic and just used 3 lengths of this thinner elastic to kind of simulate the thick one, which probably was a bad idea, and I ended up having to switch out once I actually found thicker fabric regardless, so I would not recommend this, but it definitely makes a fun little twang instrument. And here is the hemmed and elastified skirt. It is pretty damn ugly at this point, let's be honest. But this isn't what you're gonna see anyway, so it doesn't really matter, it's just to go underneath. And voila! Here is the fitted sheet that I'll be using to make the 2 other underskirts. I'm making 6 skirts, so your girl needed quite a bit of fabric, which I didn't have, so I had to go and scrounge up a sheet that I kind of thought my family wouldn't miss, hopefully. Lovely fabric sheet, which doubles as an excellent ghost costume. Hope you enjoyed that. Once I had the sheet, I just cut out a piece of fabric that I could actually use out of it, laid down the rectangle. Judging by the first underskirt, just cut out a bit longer length. I did the second underskirt a bit differently than the first. Rather than creating a hem and running the elastic through, I essentially just pinned the elastic along the length of it and pulled on the elastic and sewed the fabric at the same time so that it would essentially just like ruche it automatically, and also this keeps the elastic in place, which I actually found to be a lot better for the underskirts, so I would definitely recommend doing this instead of running it through the hem. Once I had sewn that elastic at the top and it created those ruches, I just sewed the 2 edges of the length together, and that created my second underskirt. Moving on to the longest underskirt, this one I for some reason put way more effort into, but anyway, so I began again with a rectangle, just hemmed the top and the bottom, and then I actually meticulously gathered the fabric like evenly along both sides, sewed the length of the skirt along the opening, but I left the top and the bottom open so that I had room to get in as well as move my legs. You don't want to make it like a straight tube or else your girl's gonna have some difficulty walking. I don't know why I just went into pirate voice, but anyway, and then when you have those two openings at the top to actually close it, I add a button as well as a little ribbon attachment to close up the top. And by movie magic, I've already created the pleats and pinned them down. Essentially what I did was just lay down the rectangle of fabric on the ground, have a measuring tape by the edge which I was pleating, and then I just pleated to the length of my waist circumference, and I just made sure that both sides were the same length so that the pleats were symmetrical. Sewing the pleats. Once the pleats were sewn in, I just created this little lip at the top so that the portion that opens at the top isn't just raw fabric, so I essentially just created a hem on both sides, essentially just folded over a sort of triangular piece of fabric and sewed it down. And voila, here is the pleated piece of fabric, so beautifully draped. I was actually really happy with the look of the pleats. I also ironed them down, so that helps a lot to make them look nice and smooth. Once those pleats were sewn down, I went on to the next step of adding a closure. In this case, it would be a button. So I began by creating the buttonhole, and I just tried it out on a raw piece of fabric to make sure it was working well, and I knew what I was doing. And then I could move on to my actual fabric without fucking up my fabric. Yeah. And yeah, once you create the hole, you essentially just cut out the fabric within it. Just hand sewed the button onto the other side. Oh, she's messy. Ew, whatever. I had my button closure. Once I'd done that, I moved on to closing the open edge of the skirt. So I just left a length of fabric open where that button is, and then also at the bottom, so that I had room to move my legs. And voila, here is the first underskirt. I look like a formidable tavern wench, you know? You want a mug of beer? I don't know. Yeah, and like I said, that got that slit at the bottom, so movement. 3 hours later, yeah, no, let's just pretend it was, but I'm literally wearing something else. Like, this is a totally different day. Let's just pretend that, you know, time is a construct. Time is a construct. Like with the longer outer skirt, I started off by laying the fabric flat on the ground and creating the pleats according to the length of the circumference of my waist, and bam! Okay, apparently I already did it, and I already pinned it to the other underskirt. Wow, movie magic. Anyway, and then I just sewed the two together, and this whole thing is in elastic, so you have to make sure that you're actually making it the right length. And a short intermission where Lise comes to show me a video. Next step is I wanted to add these additional little ribbons that would create a more adjustable fit for the closing of the waist of the skirt. So I just zigzag stitched the end of the two ribbons and then sewed them onto the ends of that opening. Next was to create the two other outer skirts. So I just used the rectangle of fabric of the curtains that I had left, essentially pinned where I wanted to cut to get the two other rectangles to make the two other skirts, and then I just cut along that length. This was the case with the first skirt as well as the second skirt, in that I had this hem or edge that was already sewn into the curtains, which was really useful because that's less work for me, and also it was kind of a nicer hem than I probably could have made. So that's the usefulness of using curtains, my friends. And there's Randy walking by, just strolling by. And yeah, I essentially repeated exactly more or less the same process as with the underskirts as well as the longer skirt, except in the case of the outer ones, I added a ribbon at the top so that you couldn't see the pleating and like the sewing, so that it was a little bit tidier. And then, bam! Apparently I'm done. My literal blessing of a mom is recording this, and she's hyping me up. That translates to I haven't shaved my legs, and I think we can all acknowledge that one of the bonuses of floor-length skirts and dresses is nobody knows if you didn't shave your legs. Here she is in all her glory with the bodice and with the sleeves. So 3-tiered skirt, each of which has a underskirt, but I actually am only wearing the longest underskirt in this case, otherwise it would be too bulky. So this is it without the third shorter layer, just the bottom 2 longer ones. I kind of like it this way as well. It really depends on your preference. And then this is also it with just the bottom layer, so just the longest one. Also sorry, I'm eating a mango, but can we just ignore the fact that my sleeve fell down and I didn't even notice this whole time? This is the second or medium length skirt. I really like this one. I think it would be the most comfortable / semi-normal to wear out. And finally, the third and shortest skirt is, yeah, I really like the look, but as you can tell from this clip, which was shot during an especially windy day, she's not very weatherproof. And ta-da, this is just me frolicking a little bit more. And that's a wrap. Or should I say gown? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video explaining how I made the 3 skirts. They definitely took longer than anticipated, but again, that's just because your girl's dumb and I kept messing up, so hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. I also just wanted to highlight how this was largely inspired by Makara Tours. I think that's how you say her name. She's a big YouTuber who does a lot of sewing, and I just love how like freely she does it, and I don't know, she's super entertaining to watch, so be sure to go check her out as well. Again, I hope this gets you inspired and motivates you to make something yourself, or you just enjoyed watching me make my gown. That concludes my 3-part series on my princess gown. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely had a lot of fun making it, although it was pretty arduous, but it was definitely worth it, and I love the result. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye!